With the hope that you will all be well, let's start today's lecture. As we are covering the contents regarding about stresses in beams. In our previous lecture, we studied about the moment curvature relationship, location of neutral axis, Fletcher formula, stresses at the cross sections, doubly symmetric shapes, and at the end of the lecture, we also studied the some limitations. However, in this part of lecture, we will cover the some contents regarding about design of beams by discussing the topics design of beams for bending stresses, relative efficiency of various beam shapes, non-prismatic beams, and fully stressed beams. So let's start. Design of beams for bending stresses. The process of designing a beam requires that many factors be considered, including the type of structure such as airplane, automobile, bridge, building, or whatever, the materials to be used, the loads to be supported, the environmental conditions to be encountered, and finally the cost to be paid. However, from the standpoint of strength, the task eventually reduces to selecting a shape and size of beams such that the actual stresses in the beam do not exceed the allowable stresses for the material. So in this section, we will consider only the bending stresses, that is the stresses obtained from the Fletcher formula. So we can say that when designing a beam to resist bending stresses, we usually begin by calculating the required section modulus. For instance, if the beam has a doubly symmetric cross section and the allowable stresses are the same for both tension and compression, we can calculate the required modulus by dividing the maximum bending moment by the allowable bending stress for the material. Mathematically, we can write it as S is equal to M max over sigma allow. The allowable stress is based upon the properties of the material and the desired factor of safety. To ensure that this stress is not exceeded, we must choose a beam that provides a section modulus at least as large that obtained from this expression. If the cross section is not doubly symmetric or if the allowable stresses are different for tension and compression, we usually need to determine two required section moduli, one based upon tension and other based upon compression. Then we must provide a beam that satisfies both criteria. However, to minimize weight and save material, we usually select a beam that has the least cross-sectional area, while still providing the required section moduli and also meeting any other design requirements that may be imposed. Beams are constructed in a great variety of shapes and sizes to suit a myriad of purposes. For instance, very large steel beams are fabricated by welding. Aluminium beams are extruded as round or rectangular tubes, while the wood beams are cut and glued to fit special requirements. And reinforced concrete beams are cast in any desired shape by proper construction of the forms. In addition, beams of steels, aluminium, plastic, and wood can be ordered in standard shapes and sizes from catalogs supplied by dealers and manufacturers. Readily available shapes include wide flank beams, I-beams, angles, channels, rectangular beams, and tubes. However, the dimensions and properties of any kind of beams are listed in engineering handbooks. For instance, in the United States, the shapes and sizes of structural steel beams are standardized by the American Institute of Steel Construction, which publishes manuals giving their properties in both USCS and SI units. The tables in these manuals list cross-sectional dimensions and properties such as weight, cross-sectional area, moment of inertia, and section modulus. Now we will move on our next topic, relative efficiency of various beam shapes. One of the objectives in designing a beam is to use the material as efficiently as possible within the constraints imposed by function, appearance, manufacturing costs, and the like. From the standpoint of strength alone, efficiency in bending depends upon the shape of the cross-section mainly. In particular, the most efficient beam is one in which the material is located as far as practical from the neutral axis. The further a given amount of material is from the neutral axis, the larger the section modulus becomes, and the larger the section modulus, the larger the bending moment that can be resisted for a given allowable stress. As an illustration, consider a cross section in the form of a rectangle of width V and height h, as you can also see in figure here. In this case, the section modulus can be expressed as S is equal to B h square over 6. We can also express it as AH over 6 or 0.167 AH, where A denotes the cross-sectional area. This equation shows that a rectangular cross-section of given area becomes more efficient as the height h is increased and the width b is decreased to keep the area constant. Of course, there is a practical limit to the increase in height because the beam becomes literally unstable when the ratio of height to width becomes too large. Thus, a beam of very narrow rectangular cross-section will fail due to lateral or sideways buckling rather than to insufficient strength of the material. Now let us compare a solid circular cross-section of diameter d, as shown in figure here, with the square cross-section of the same area. The side edge of a square having the same area as the circle is written as d by 2 pi under root. However, the corresponding section moduli can be expressed as, for the case of square, it can be written as h cube over 6. As we already discussed that h is equal to d by 2 pi under root. So after replacing h by d by 2 pi under root, this expression can be written as pi under root pi d cube over 48. After simplification, we can also express it as 0.1160 d cube. However, for the case of circle, the section moduli can be written as pi d cube over 32. That can also be expressed as 0.0982 d cube. From these expressions, we get s square over s circle is equal to 1.18. So this result shows that a beam of square cross-section is more efficient in resisting bending than is a circular beam of the same area. The reason, of course, is that a circle has a relatively larger amount of material located near the neutral axis. This material is less highly stressed and therefore it does not contribute as much to the strength of the beam. However, the ideal cross-sectional shape for a beam of given cross-sectional area A and height h would be obtained by placing one half of the area at distance h by 2 above the neutral axis and the other half at distance h by 2 below the neutral axis, as you can also see in figure here. For this ideal shape, we obtain I is equal to 2a by 2 h by 2 square. Here I is the polar moment of inertia that can also be expressed as a h square over 4. And the section moduli can be written as I over h by 2 or 0.5 ah. These theoretical limits are approached in practice by wide flange sections and I sections which have most of their material in the flanges. For standard wide flange beams, the section modulus is approximately 0.35 ah, which is less than the ideal but much larger than the section modulus for a rectangular cross-section of the same area and height. Another desirable feature of a wide flange beam is its greater width and hence greater stability with respect to sideways buckling when compared to a rectangular beam of the same height and section modulus. On the other hand, there are practical limits to how thin we can make a web of a wide flange beam. If the web is too thin, it will susceptible to localized buckling or it may be overstressed in shear. Here we will see a problem related to the topic. The problem statement is a simply supported wood beam having a span length that is symbolized with L is 12 feet. Carries a uniform load Q that is 420 pound-feet as you can also see in figure here. The allowable bending stress is 1800 psi. The wood weighs 35 pound per feet cube and the beam is supported laterally against sideways buckling and tipping. We have to select a suitable size for the beam from the table in Appendix F. Actually, Appendix F contains the properties of structural lumber. I will also provide the table for students' convenience. However, anyone can see these tables from textbook or internet. So after analyzing the problem statement, now we will move towards the solution. Since we do not know in advance how much the beam weighs, we will proceed by trial and errors as follows. In first step, we have to find out the required section modulus based upon the given uniform load. In second step, select a trial size for the beam, and in third step, we add the weight of the beam to the uniform load and calculate a new required section modulus. Finally, check to see that the selected beam is still satisfactory. If it is not, select a larger beam and repeat the process again. In step 1, we have to find out the maximum bending moment. The maximum bending moment in the beam occurs at the midpoint and we can calculate it by using the expression Mmax is equal to QL square over 8. We know the values of Q and L that are also given in the problem statement. Q is 420 pound-feet and L, that is length, is 12 feet. Here it is important to note that first we have to convert feet into inches, as you can also see from this expression. And finally the maximum bending moment after some simplifications will be 90720 pound-inch. However, the required section modulus can be calculated by using the expression S is equal to maximum bending moment divided by allowable bending stress. We have just calculated the maximum bending moment while the value of allowable bending stress is already given in problem statement. So after putting these values, the required section modulus will be 50.40 inch cube. Now we will move on table that contains the properties of structural lumber. We see that the lightest beam that supplies a section modulus of at least 50.40 is a 3 × 12 inch beam. This beam has a section modulus equal to 52.73 inch cube and weighs 6.8 pound per feet. The uniform load on the beam now becomes, after adding the weight of the beam, 426.8 pound per feet, and the corresponding required section modulus is S is equal to 50.40 multiplied by total load divided by the applied load, that is actually 426.8 divided by 420. Now the section modulus will be 51.22 inch cube. The previously selected beam has a section modulus of about 52.73 inch cube, which is larger than the required section modulus of 51.22 inch cube. Therefore, we can say that a beam with 3 × 12 inch gives the satisfactory results. Now we will briefly discuss the non-prismatic beams. The beam theories described in lectures were derived for prismatic beams, that is straight beams having the same cross sections throughout their lengths. However, non-prismatic beams are commonly used to reduce weight and improve appearance. Such beams are found in automobiles, airplanes, machinery, bridges, buildings, tools, and many other applications. Fortunately, the Fletcher formula gives reasonable accurate values for the bending stresses in non-prismatic beams. Whenever the changes in cross-sectional dimensions are gradual, as in the examples shown in figure here. The manner in which the bending stresses vary along the axis of a non-prismatic beam is not the same as for a prismatic beam. In a prismatic beam, the section modulus S is constant and therefore the stresses vary in direct proportion to the bending moment. However, in a non-prismatic beam, the section modulus also varies along the axis. Consequently, we cannot assume that the maximum stresses occur at the cross-section with the largest bending moment. Sometimes the maximum stresses occur elsewhere. So here is some discussion on fully stressed beams. To minimize the amount of material and thereby have the lightest possible beam, we can vary the dimensions of the cross sections so as to have the maximum allowable bending stress at every section. A beam in this condition is called a fully stressed beam or a beam of constant strength. Of course, these ideal conditions are seldom attained because of practical problems in constructing the beam and the possibility of the loading being different from those assumed in design. Nevertheless, knowing the properties of a fully stressed beam can be an important aid to the engineer when designing structures for minimum weight. Familiar examples of structures designed to maintain nearly constant maximum stress are leaf springs in automobiles and some of the structures shown in figure here. I hope that this lecture would be very helpful for you. Thank you for your attention.